How am I doing with time, Virginia?
You're fine.
Okay. Let me just kind of look back here. Vince Tola, I agree that relational organizing is very effective. If we bring that organizing to our small towns and rural areas, pushing radical democracy and solutions to the effect of neoliberalism, we could expand our power in those areas. Should the MGP put more emphasis on organizing? Should the MGP put more emphasis on organizing and running in our small towns and rural counties? So I want to share a success story with you, Vince, and everyone else, and that is in West Virginia. Now, Little Birdie tells me, and we haven't said anything about this publicly yet, but our Mountain Party friends, so the Green affiliate in West Virginia is called the Mountain Party of West Virginia. What they've been able to do in a small community is to flip one of the council members to the Mountain Party party registration. And they focused on this. This happens to be the most progressive council member. This council member is a Latina. Actually, her family's from Guatemala, like mine is, which I thought was really cool. And they really focused their messaging on her and kind of flipped her over. And so while I don't necessarily advocate for spending a lot of energy on flipping elected officials over, I do think that that's indicative of the possibilities in a rural community. So just to kind of give you an idea, here in Colorado, we have 65 different districts. We have, I should say, house districts. And the majority of those districts, counties, are in these very, very rural and very remote areas. There's a Hinsdale County here in Colorado, which has, I think it's something like 200 registered voters altogether, right? Now, I do think that we can build a lot of power, especially when it gets to winning legislative seats, where coincidentally the ballot access laws come from. I think that trying to go after some of these rural seats is very important, and it's a very, very good strategy. One strategy that I think you all in Maryland have employed is to kind of go narrow and deep. In other words, everybody focus on one race and just, put all of your resources behind that. If that's not you, I apologize. And so you all are going to have to investigate what it looks like, because just as there's a lot of opportunity in rural counties, the reality is that we really don't have a green presence in the rural counties, right? But one data point that you all need to kind of look at as you kind of determine whether or not that strategy would work for the state is to look at voter turnout. Don't look just as much just at what the percentage of Republicans, what they did versus the percentage of votes for Democrats. What you really need to look at, the data point you need, is how many registered voters are in that district, how many of them are of what party, how many of them are for whatever party, and how many votes were actually cast. And what you're going to see more often than not in those rural counties that tend to lean conservative, quote unquote, because Greens are also conservative about other things, right? But what more often than not, that what you're going to see in those districts is that the voter turnout is actually quite low. And so what that indicates is that the right-leaning voters are checking out of their own politicians' rhetoric and policies. That presents an excellent opportunity, and this is the genius of the Green New Deal, right? Those coincidentally tend to be places where you got youth that are fleeing to the cities, where there's a lot of economic deprivation, where Walmart is the only game in town, where the jobs are, oh my God, way less than minimum wage in some cases, the federal minimum wage. And there are a lot of people really suffering. There's not enough welfare to go around. The schools are not well funded. You're going to see a lot of this kind of things. You know, the COVID rollout, the vaccine rollout hasn't been very good. You're going to see a lot of these things. And so what the voter turnout in those districts will indicate to you is that the right-leaning voters are not getting served. what an excellent time to talk about the Green New Deal in those districts, right? What is a Green New Deal for this right-leaning county? What does that look like? When you start talking and you don't, try. Now, I'm a socialist. I like talking about socialism and things like this. But in a district like that, I probably wouldn't be talking socialism. I would be talking about the commons. I would be talking about what do we get for our taxes. I would be talking about things like that, right? And so because I would spend some time and try to talk to some of those voters and kind of see what resonates with them and what doesn't, I would be gearing my message about what a Green New Deal for that county looks like, using sort of the terminology and maybe the little bit of the rhetoric that they tend to use. Because if we put our guard down, a lot of times people are saying exactly what we're saying. They're just using different verbiage, right? And if I want to sell something to you in English, the last thing that I'm going to do is to market to you in Spanish, right? You got to use the language of the people that are there, and you're only going to achieve that by having the conversations. So I would really encourage you all to kind of take a look at that. There are some districts that for Greens would be completely winnable because that voter turnout for Republicans is going to be pretty low overall. And you can make the case there to people in those areas that, on top of it, the Democrats aren't doing anything for you, right? Because they're not able to. They don't have the power to do it. So I would really recommend digging into that. Mary says, thank you for bringing up working through conflicts. We got to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all we have. All we have is each other. We don't wish ill on each other. We want to be heard and we want to feel respected. And there are different, things that kind of impact that or whatever else. But, we've got to give it the old college try with each other. So Vince, how am I doing with time? Good?
Yep, you're fine.
Okay. The West Virginia example is a college town with a low turnout surrounded by rural areas, which is very winnable kind of race to focus on in Maryland. And there are a few places that we could do really well. I absolutely agree with that. But, just like we believe in sustainability for all kinds of other things, we also need to think about sustainability for our political action. We have to sit down and we have to analyze our states. We have to look at our counties. We have to see, is there a lot of fracking in a rural community? And what can we say about that? Is there activism already happening? And so we have to look at it as an opportunity to build connections in those places where we don't have them originally. And when there's fracking, there's homeowners there, landowners there that are really, really mad that their water's getting polluted, right? That's a logical place for us to start building relationships. So